Hello my dear friends, welcome back to another very exciting Star Wars video. The wait is finally over. Andor Season 2 is finally upon us. The first 3 episodes just dropped and well, I have a lot of thoughts. The episodes dropped very early here in the UK, so I woke up at 2 and I've had time to watch, rewatch, reflect, and I have some very fun theories and speculation. We're gonna get into all of it. From the amazing world building of live-action Chandrila, to the dilemmas of the different characters, the Ghorman stuff, the comedy and the dinner party scenes, not to mention the Bix controversy. The first 3 episodes the first year of Andor Season 2 was so jam-packed. And so the way I'm going to structure this review, I'm going to mainly focus on the crucial bits, those scenes that need a deep dive, ones which have major implications for the wider Star Wars universe, a few lore tidbits, Easter eggs, and just my overall thoughts. It's going to be a blast. So right off the bat, if you just want a soundbite, if you just want to know my initial thoughts, I think it's amazing. Whether it's the writing, the complexity, the dialogue, the character development, the cinematography on Synnar and Chandrila, there is no Disney Plus Star Wars show that compares. Andor really is the best. So again, just before we do a deep dive into some of the big stuff, out of the first 3 episodes, I would say the first is my favourite. And while I did enjoy the other 2, I couldn't help but feel as though they could have trimmed some of that stuff down to be one long episode instead, especially where it concerns the arguments within the Massacre rebel group. But I have to admit, the reveal that all of this was on Yavin 4 was amazing. And there's an irony to it, not just because this is where the Rebel Alliance is going to set up their base, but also based on who the Massacre were. In case you didn't know, Massacre was one of the groups saw Gerrera listed in Season 1, one of the other rebel cells he didn't want to collaborate with, one of the many he said were ideologically lost.
Massacre's a neo-Republican. They're lost!
As we know, Saul believed he was the only one with clarity of purpose. His rebel partisans the only ones with the structure and ability to take down the Empire. And in these first episodes of Season 2, you can kind of see his point. I mean, could you imagine if Saul met them? He would have lost his freaking mind. They would have driven him crazy. With Massacre now presumed dead, the rest of the group was divided. They were so ridiculously incompetent. And I feel like this season, which is going to show us how the Rebel Alliance formed, is going to show the difference between rebel cells that came together, compromised, found unity, and those that didn't. Those that stayed divided and fractured, and those that never made it. But the reason I say there is an irony to the Massacre being on Yavin 4 is because the reason Saul disagreed with them is the same reason he's going to disagree with Mothma and the founding of the Rebel Alliance. The Massacre group are neo-Republicans. They want a restoration of the Republic, whereas Saw Gerrera is more militant. The United Rebel Alliance from the original trilogy, which we're going to see form by the end of this season, was literally called the Alliance to Restore the Republic. But it's so much more than ideology. It's organization, the right leadership, a shared mission, expansion, and don't get it wrong, Saw Gerrera's partisans were definitely flawed. And as we know from Rogue One, he doesn't make it past Jeddah. But as exemplified in these episodes, he's definitely not running the worst rebel cell. But something that is so clever about these scenes is they demonstrate Cassian's maturity and growth by contrast. He never wallows in his misfortune, he never gives up. Despite his situation, he's always formulating a plan, always suggesting tactics. And so when the Massacre rebels devolve into childish games of 5 hands, Cassian does a runner. He sees the opportunity to make a break, and he goes for it. There's a reason we assume Cassian is the only surviving member of Axis Cell by the end of this season. I have a feeling Luthen is going to be compromised, Clea's going to be compromised, but Cassian's savviness and his evolving skill set gets him to Rogue One and the Rings of Catherine, which by the way was an Easter egg in the first episode. Did you catch it? It was the name of the password on Synnar. And I have to say the TIE Avenger scenes were so cinematic. For the small screen for a TV show, those were insane. Speaking of moments that were cinematic, we now turn to Mon Mothma and the Mothma estate. Some of the best looking scenes of the entire show. And I'm talking in general, not just this season. There is this huge contrast between the opulence and forced happiness of Leida's wedding versus the desperation of Mon Mothma, her secret struggle. We know this is all building up to her leaving the Senate, but there is a problem. The risk of being exposed, the risk of the Foundation being exposed, and blackmailing. Mon Mothma's friend Tay Kolma, who was helping her in the first season, has fallen on hard times. He's broke, he's going through separation, and Mon is powerless to protect him from his worst instincts, getting closer to Davos Golden, which puts Mon and Luthen in a very dangerous position. However, my dear friends, with one call, Luthen takes care of it. Cinta jumps into action, and we assume Tay is no longer a liability. He's been presumably killed off. And because the next episode, episode 4, is going to jump a year, we've probably seen the last of Tay. But Luthen isn't off the hook, because as Tony Gilroy said in a recent interview, there is another loose thread. The Chandrila scenes was such a treat. But did you know, my dear friends, there is a Star Wars Rebels character in these scenes who made the jump to live action, and no one's talking about it. Erskin Semaj, Mon Mothma's senatorial aide, is one of those who helps her escape to the Ghost in Star Wars Rebels. But in the Andor Season 2 premiere, he made the jump to live action, and we now know he's from Naboo. I don't know if you remember this, but about a year ago, Bespin Bulletin had the exclusive that we might see Naboo in Season 2. What if we see Jar Jar Binks, or Captain Panaka, who is now an Imperial Moth? But returning to Mon Mothma, I might make a separate video about this, but I love the moments that show tension between Mon and her daughter. Her daughter chose tradition. Mon tries to save her, but she can't. She isn't the free thinker that Mon was. Leida actually chose this life. Mon was forced into it. I have a feeling Mon is never going to see her daughter again. But something to note, Tony Gilroy said Perrin is going to have a redemption. So maybe Mon's husband finds out about what she's up to, but defends her, and maybe takes the fall. And one final thing on the Chandrilan front, it was cool to see another Akatan mention. But moving on, my dear friends, we have to talk about Dedra, Syril, and Eedy. The dinner party from hell was hilarious, and the way Dedra Meero stood up to Eedy like that. I've met people like Eedy, manipulative, bullying, cruel, and they only respond to those who are strong enough to fight back. Now, my favourite scene from the entire premiere was Krennic talking about the Ghorman mission. From the Ministry of Enlightenment to the propaganda films, it's very clear where Tony Gilroy took his inspiration. A certain 1930s regime in Europe. You know the one I'm talking about. But interestingly enough, the Empire's already had some engagement with Ghorman. There is the Ghorman front. Remember, the protesters are going to try to fight back. It's a risky move from the Empire. They're not after the Spider Twill. As Krennic said, it isn't the most valuable resource there. What is the Calcite. He wants to use it for Project Stardust, lining the Death Star reactor lenses with Ghorman Calcite. So we're about to see some huge tension. The Ghorman Massacre is going to be a through line throughout the entire season. I also love the callback to Revenge of the Sith. Krennic said Palpatine wants unlimited power. Because Andor feels so different to the Skywalker Saga movies, at times you forget it's the same universe. But then small Easter eggs, small references, always bring it back. So finally, my dear friends, let's talk about the rebels on Mina Rao. Many of us suspected Brasso was going to die, but not this soon. And we've seen the last of B2, not because he died, but because he was left with Brasso's wife, while Cassian, Wilman, and Bix escaped. But Bix has a very hard road. Not only was she tortured by Dr. Gorst, who still haunts her dreams, but now she was assaulted. The rumours were true. Keeping in line with the show demonstrating the brutality of the Empire, I think it was handled in a very Andor way. It was disturbing and very uncomfortable. But we know from the trailers and some of the other reviews, Bix is about to get her revenge. Not on the guy who just died, but on Dr. Gorst, the man who tortured her. It's given Bix extra drive. But I had a blast. I love these episodes. This season is going to be incredible. But what do you guys think? Did you enjoy the first 3 episodes? And what was your standout moment, character, scene? Let me know down below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, my dear friends, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and may the Force be with you, always.